Good morning, everybody. Welcome. It's our last day today. You guys have been a great audience. Hello to all those online. And what I'd like to do is take just a moment and center ourselves. Take a deep breath. You've had a lot of information come in, and that will soon be your own wisdom. We've had speakers from all around the world come and participate. And just take a moment and say hello to the God of your heart. Be aware of the divine light that shines within you, that is guiding you through all of your steps. Give gratitude. Privilege. What is it to take all of your hats off and just be a free soul in a body? Allowing the light in, redefine how you perceive. Om Gam Ganapati Om Dham Dhanvantiye Namaha Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We're so privileged to have our guest today. Who does not know Dr. David Frawley? Okay. You know, he was here. He is one of the pioneers of Ayurveda in the US, and he's even more appreciated and known in India, if that's even a possibility. And he has the title of Vamadeva Shastri. He came to our very first conference in 2001 when we were just 8 board members, no membership, nothing. And when I wrote to him, inviting him, he said yes, just to support the movement of Ayurveda. And today we have seen just California alone have graduating about 400 Ayurveda practitioners a year. Okay, that's how Ayurveda is growing, and it's nationwide. But I'm just telling you about California. So we're just so blessed, and I'm so happy that he is here at my last conference. Although it's not going to be the last of CAAM. CAAM conferences are going to keep growing and get more prolific. He's a Vedic teacher, Vedacharya, active in related fields of yoga, Ayurveda, Jyotish, and Vedanta. Worldwide in the last 40 years, and he's also the author of numerous books. I can't even name them all, and they're master studies, all of them. He is director of the American Institute of Vedic Studies, which provides educational resources in these Vedic fields. He's a recipient of the Padma Bhushan, third highest award of the government of India. Okay, and for his Vedic educational work. His book, Ayurvedic Healing, was recently honored by the British Parliament as part of Diwali celebrations, and today he will discuss both Ayurveda and yoga and dealing with the digital age. So please welcome Dr. David Frawley.
Namaste, Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. I'm very happy to be with you today. I'm very happy to see Mamta again and recollect the rather large conferences she did 25 years ago. I think 300 attendees in person at that particular time. And I want to thank the organization here for putting this event together and all the speakers who have come and the many topics that are covered. I presume the videos may be available for the future for others. So again, I'm very happy to be here. I'm sorry I did not attend in person because I recently returned from a couple of months in India, and so I wasn't ready to take another trip. Now, we are having an interesting topic and something that is very relevant and also challenging today. In fact, if someone said 25 years ago we would be having these issues, we would be surprised. If someone said 40 years ago, 50 years ago, we wouldn't even be able to understand what it is. So we are in a new era of humanity that has its own benefits, challenges, and dangers. And these I want to address at various levels. And first, I'll put it in just a slight perspective of the Jyotish or the Vedic astrology. Many of you are familiar with the work of Paramahansa Yogananda, and he noted that humanity is entering into a new, what he called, electrical age, in which many changes would be occurring and already occurred in the course of his life as well. And we're seeing more of these changes today. And this new era, which is often heralded and dominated by science, has both its benefits and also its dangers. Yogananda himself wrote that science today is a two-edged sword, and it can help us, but it can also cause problems because whatever new technology we have can also be commercialized or weaponized and cause also disruptions in our lives, just as it can improve communication, travel, and many other aspects as well. So I want to address these challenges that are going on today and likely to continue for the future because humanity is not able to change quickly to enough to master the new technology. Instead of us guiding it, we are often being guided or ruled by it as well. And the new technology has also brought in a new medicine. It's also brought in new diseases. And sometimes there is a connection between the new diseases and the new medicine. And also, it has brought in an influence on our health and well-being that is not always positive and requires a lot of adjustment. And we see social, political issues, but we also see personal and psychological issues. At this level, yoga and Ayurveda remain more relevant and more important for the future because they alone provide the natural healing, but also the understanding of the mind and higher states of consciousness that is necessary to deal with this very complex technology that is coming out today. And it's very important that we honor the benefits of the technology, but learn to master it from a higher consciousness and deeper self-awareness, and also appreciation of natural healing, and also taking care of the ecological issues and challenges that we have. Most recently, we have this idea of artificial intelligence. I have written and said in several contexts that it is a misnomer. An artificial person is not a real person. An artificial reality is not real. An artificial life is not really alive. So artificial intelligence is a way of denoting a new type of computer-based intelligence, a very sophisticated management, word processing, calculating, organizing, designing system that has many applications in science and research, but is not something we should just simply follow blindly. And it is something that can also be manipulated and used because it's programmed. In this regard, one of my friends, his name is Sanjeev Sanyal. He's one of the, he's part of the Ministry of Economics in India. He wrote an interesting article and he said that AI is a great slave, but a bad master. But it's part of a greater technology. And here is the thing. As we live in that technology influences us on many levels, including reprogramming our minds, our nervous system, our behavior, our social interaction, and also, of course, our education. And we begin to emulate it as what we need to do with our lives. And here, yoga and Ayurveda provide us some basic information about who we are and how the mind works. Mind itself, by nature, is a conditioned mechanism, conditioned by karma, by memory, by various what I would call physiological, psychological, and also social imperatives. In other words, it's also programmed. So it is susceptible to take upon a new programming from a mechanical level. And yet we are not machines. We also have the life force. We also have organic energies, connection with the entire world of nature, and a deeper self, Atman Purusha, which transcends body, mind, and karma, connecting to which is the basis of self-realization, a deeper healing, and a deeper awareness for all. And more specifically, these electrical energies are going to affect and are affecting how our prana works. And that means how the nervous system works, the brain, the senses, both the cognitive and motor senses, and also the mind. And therefore, they have a strong effect upon us in terms of our health and well-being, and changing how we think and operate, disrupting social patterns, disrupting sleep patterns, disturbing the nervous system. And from the Ayurvedic standpoint, of course, this new technology, this electrical maze that is bombarding us from all sides, is going to disturb the prana. And of course, initially, more so the Vata dosha, which is the basic pranic electrical force moving the body and mind. Prana is an organic force that is like electricity. It transcends just the prana of our individual physiology. It is the force in nature that pervades the entire world of nature. But the new technology can also aid or cause the disturbances of the other doshas. The irritation behind it can also provoke aspects of the pitta dosha. its tendency to make us into spectators and also to deplete us, to increase kapha dosha at certain levels, and also to weaken ojas, and which means to weaken both our physical and psychological immunity. In fact, I have also written on that whole issue of needing to strengthen our physical and psychological immunity. And we must remember that the mind itself is an addictive mechanism. It gets us caught in repeatable patterns, which means that if we educate ourselves, particularly starting at childhood with this digital mechanical world, as to some extent we tend to become that way. We begin to think like the media, or we look to this technology to guide us in life, to tell us who we are and to dictate what our past, present, and future should lead to. So we are always today finding greater addictions going on, drug-based addictions, stimuli, sensory addictions. And then we are also finding the consequence in terms of long-term depression, anxiety, weakened immunity, and so forth. These are also subjects I have addressed, but to put one of them very simply, what is the cause of depression? And the answer is very simple. It is stimulation. The more you're dependent upon external stimuli, the more you're capable of feeling depressed or withdrawal syndromes when that stimuli is removed, or even if that stimuli is reduced and you get addicted to it. It's not just the cup of coffee in the morning, it's also the news first thing or the news last thing, which keeps you going, but also has that long-term irritating effect on the prana overall. And in other words, we really need to emphasize these doshic way of life, sattvic living, natural healing more so today, which means we have to know how to detach from the technology, put it in its place, and distance ourselves from it, particularly morning and evening. Now, Ayurveda teaches us certain causes of disease. First is what is called prajna parada, which is fairly simple to understand. It means a weakness or deficiency of discernment, detachment, lack of attention and awareness, which leads to wrong judgment. And it means getting caught in the transient. So we fail to see the long-term consequences of our action. Yoga itself is based upon increasing prajna, which is the basis of the viveka vairagya, the discernment and detachment that is the foundation of the yoga sadhana. Second cause of disease is the wrong use of the senses, particularly the excessive use of the senses or overstimulation of the senses. And this is a problem we also see going on today. We're losing our natural sensory acuity because we're used to being bombarded by all this digital and electrical type influence. Our power of attention is now being reduced to seconds, not just simply minutes, which means we lose the ability to draw the connection between cause and effect and our health and disease. We are looking at immediate reactions more so than the long-term consequences. Here, let me give you a simple example. Overall, the mind, we tend to become or get influenced by or imitate that what we give our most attention and consideration to. So what this means is that if we're looking at a screen all day long, particularly a small screen, then we ourselves emulate that and we start to function like a small screen. I'm not saying we start to look like a small screen, but it narrows down our minds. The mind wants space. The mind wants nature, horizons, vastness. But if we're confined to a little box, our thinking becomes narrow. And one of the things that's happened today, and we've been losing our depth perception, our ability to see nuances. We're now thinking in terms of black and white, good guys versus bad guys, one side versus the other, almost a two-dimensional worldview. Our journalism itself is now filled with name-calling rather than examination of issues involved. And we're becoming more removed from the world of nature. And this is particularly affecting the children. In fact, in our schools, often the children are learning along not only with the teacher, but with the cell phone there as well. And I'm not saying this doesn't have value, but it must be compensated for. So at a very simple, practical level, this is just an introduction to how we look at these things. I always tell people that you need to compensate for these limited forces, and you need to find certain tools for doing that. For example, one thing I recommend for everyone is to restore your depth perception before you go to sleep at night. I mean, it's ideal to go out and look at the stars for a few minutes, or to look across the valley, or to at least imagine or visualize a vast space in the mind. In other words, recondition our senses in nature is very important. The main yogic therapy and Ayurveda psychology therapy for mind and behavior is what we call the Sattva Vijaya, or the Sattvic therapy. It is very much outlined in the yamas and niyamas of the Yoga Sutras and various related Vedantic principles. Particularly, of course, everybody knows ahimsa, or non-harming. But the Vedanta teaches us that the world of nature is predominantly sattvic. If you go out in nature, your mind expands, your perception deepens, it becomes more nuanced, even your attention increases, and you gain more sense of self-awareness and also well-being as well. Whereas our human realm, as Vedanta teaches, is dominated by rajas and tamas. Rajas as assertion, aggression, disturbance. I'm not saying it doesn't have its good side. It's also movement, change, challenge. And then also tamas as inertia, density, resistance, or even addiction. So we need to know how to compensate for these. And this is where Ayurveda and yoga come in to a great extent. I mean, starts out again at the most basic level of diet with vegetarian food, natural food, prana in the food. That's the way we most basically connect to the world of nature. And prana as a universal force. It has been said by great yogis that we human beings are mentalized material beings, and mind is what we call embodied consciousness, but consciousness is also all-pervasive and everywhere along with prana. We are embodied prana. We have to breathe and eat and act and do other things in order to sustain the prana in the body. But that prana is all pervasive. It even exists in the space beyond. So proper management of the senses, the prana, the mind is very important. Proper management of the body, not only the diet, but also the yoga asanas, also travel, movement, retreats in nature, walking, hiking, all of that. And of course, the importance of prana at various levels. Prana, of course, through pranayama, and pranayama as connected to mantra and meditation. Pranayama is also connected to the even aromatherapy, opening the mind and the senses overall. And also prana as connected to the senses. We are taking in prana through the eyes, the ears, through all of our senses, particularly through the sense of touch. That's why therapeutic touch and massage, and particularly Ayurvedic oil massage, is very helpful. It's very powerful for sustaining physical immunity, because our immune system begins at the surface of the body with the skin, which is also the largest organ in the body. And the right use of the senses is also, we know, connected to the pratyahara, which is the focus of the senses, trataka, or just gazing, or just steady awareness and taking in sattvic impressions. In fact, I have another statement you may have heard already, that what junk food does to the body, junk impressions does do to the mind. We also have to bring in sensory impressions that have prana, just as we bring in food that has pranas. These are abundant in nature: the trees, the clouds, the rain, the rivers, the mountain. But if you don't connect to that, and if we connect mainly to mechanical sources, then we lose our prana overall. And then what are we taking into our minds? I often also tell students that we will let people into our minds that we would never let into our homes. We have to manage sattvic impressions, chanting, aromatherapy, working with flowers, mantras, yantras, meditation, pujas, rituals of various sorts, getting connected to the sacred realm on many levels. And that leads us to the importance of what is dharana, or dharana shakti, the increase and holding of the power of attention. Our power of attention is like a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it becomes weak. The yogi says that you must hold your power of attention for a good 48 minutes straight to be able to meditate. And our power of attention is the basis of our psychological immunity, because it helps us discern what we're bringing in and also keep out what we should not be bringing in. And whatever we give our attention to, we take in that energy or that influence. That's why we're being bombarded by commercial forces through attention, gaining our attention, advertising, subconscious mind. I'm not necessarily saying that's bad or cannot be done, but we need the appropriate discernment, or what is also called that viveka, or the power of the buddhi, the higher intelligence. And Ayurvedic doctors and practitioners are supposed to cultivate that buddhi and also train in and use it relative to our clients and students. We need to be educated in life as to what is proper food, how to breathe, how to use our senses, mantra, meditation, how to use the mind. And generally speaking, this is not taught anywhere in our educational system, or not in a significant way, even extending into our higher educational system. And this then is also the basis of what we call the behavioral medicine. And in Ayurveda, we mainly look at yoga as a behavioral medicine through the yamas and niyamas, which are the principles of psychological health and well-being. They are not just simply certain disciplines that we take up. And I don't have time to go over all of them and their relevance, but our lives should begin with what we call tapas, which is a spiritual intent, an awareness, an action, an inner practice of some sort, or what we call a sadhana, which generally requires ritual, mantra, meditation, studying of spiritual text. Also, all these different paths of yoga, Hatha yoga, Raja yoga, Bhakti yoga, Jnana yoga. So tremendous resources are there. And also, even more specifically relative to Ayurveda, we also have our ways of working upon deeper prana and also the deeper mind. Now, of course, in Ayurveda, we have all kinds of nervine type herbs and medications, but we have specifically what we call the Medhya herbs that work upon the mind, the brain, and the nervous system, particularly what we call the Medhya Rasayanas, or the rejuvenation type herbs, of which there are many: Shilajit, Ashwagandha, Brahmi, Mandukaparni, Shankapushpi, or formulas, Brahma Rasayan, Chavanprash, Ashwagandha Layam, so many things. And of course, even Brahmi ghee. Ghee is also something that's very nourishing to the brain and the nervous system. And if you're watching the oils you're taking into your body, in the digital age, we need more of the ghee type substances. And we also then need to be aware of what we call rasayana, or rejuvenation overall, because that is how we renew ourselves from these disturbing external influences to the body, the nervous system, and the mind. I did a fairly long and extensive book on soma in yoga and Ayurveda, which discusses all these rasayana methods and their importance, not only for spirituality, but also for health, well-being, and also psychology, and also as connected to the Ojas. You know, today it's very difficult for us in our disturbed technological world to just simply be calm and content and deal with the difficulties and dualities around us, the even negative forces that may be directed towards us. Unless we have that inner calm, we don't know how to move beyond that either. And so Ayurveda has much with us. And then the regular oil massage is very important. And then, of course, we have the panchakarma for removing these deep-seated toxins, which are not only outer or doshic or chemical toxins, but now also these electrical disturbances that affect our nervous system. The prana in the body as an electrical force is also carried through the fluids in the body, not only the blood, but also the rasa and even the majadhatu, or the force of the nervous system. So it also needs that nurturing balance in order to prevent itself from short-circuiting. and also our minds. And the other thing we're learning today, almost every year or two, we have to learn a new technology. And in the process, we often get disturbed or agitated or impatient. That has a certain inevitability, but we need greater calm and focus and also more detachment. Whatever you can observe with detachment, you can more deeply understand. In fact, yoga is defined as when we return to the state of the seer, which is the state of detached perception. And that detached perception has a healing factor, which is also connected to consciousness and also prana. So we also need organic energies in our workplace, whether it's aromas or ghee lamps or flowers or time off to take a sensory break or a pranayama break or go outside. And we need to restore the balance of the state of deep sleep, Sushupti, which is the foundation of deep healing and also spiritually meditation. Because in deep sleep, we go back to our core prana and force of Ojas, and we gain that inner capacity of renewal for the brain and the mind, as well as the body overall. That's why if we stay up late at night, if we overstimulate the nervous system, now we have many instances where young children or teenage, at least we know of some, who aren't sleeping properly because they're playing their computer games late at night. And of course, they're agitated in the morning. And many of us adults were watching the news or seeing what's going on in the world or worrying about our future all the way until the time we're supposedly going to sleep. So I tell people, please let go of the world, go back to a state of relaxation, meditation, cut off from the electrical forces at least an hour or two before sleep so your prana can renew itself and so you can go back into the state of that cosmic prana that we connect to in deep sleep. You do not need to worry about the world. Don't take the world with you when you go to sleep at night. You can rest assured it's going to be there in the morning, and you won't be able to do much when you're at sleep anyway, except renew yourself for the coming day. So these yogic and Ayurvedic values, silence, in other words, we have also bombarding our ears with so much noise that it disturbs the nervous system. Sound relates to ether as an element and also then has its connection via to that, to the vayu, mantra, chanting, soothing music, and also silence there, or even listening to the inner sounds, focusing on the third eye or focusing on a yantra or a flame. Because whatever we give our gaze to, we tend to reorient our mind and pranic flow accordingly. So if we're watching disturbances on the media or in the world around us, we tend to go that way. I'm not indicating that there are not good programs or art or music or other factors available through the media, but we need that sensory consciousness and understanding the importance of sensory tattva healings at all level, and understand that your mind and your awareness is sacred. Don't give it away easily, and don't give it away ultimately except to a higher force. And we're constantly looking outward. Upanishads say that when the human being was created, we have these five senses that draw us outward and prevent us from looking within. Well, today we have innumerable equipment, innumerable screens that can be very vast in size, that also prevent us from looking within. And when you're looking without, not just simply with your eyes, but with your attention, you tend to lose your prana, detachment, and discernment, and come under the power of external forces. Whoever you give your power of attention to is also going to eventually tell you who you are and what to do, not just simply who to vote for, but how to run your lives. And so this ability, this importance of teaching or learning how to turn within is essential, and how to do that with children, how to take them into nature, how to connect them to spiritual things. And I'm not saying that this is all bad, because we do have access to many travel, spiritual teachings, gurus, and communities, and all of that. One very interesting thing I was been involved with is these new temples coming up. In the United States, they released in October, or they inaugurated the largest Hindu temple, actually, not far outside of New Jersey, and also New York City, Philadelphia, over 200 feet tall, perhaps the largest religious monument in North America, at least the largest temple outside of India. And with elaborate stone carving up and down on the outside and inside, and even on the ceilings, with the most expensive marble from Italy, of all places, among other things. We have temples coming up everywhere. We also have spiritual communities growing. And we have to remember one of the most important things for right living and healing the mind and even the body is the power of association. We also call that satsang, who we connect with or emulate at an inner level. So moving within and taking the teachings within. Also very important, and connecting to our inner being or higher self, understanding our karma, which the Jyotish or the Vedic astrology is very good in doing. Of course, it requires the good Jyotishi to do that. Also understanding our dharma and having a dharmic purpose in life, which is always twofold: outwardly to take a action or career in which we can do service to humanity and to all living beings, not just at an egoistic level, but for the benefit of all. And inwardly also do our own spiritual practice or sadhana. And you will not find many problems with people physically or particularly psychologically if they are doing an effective sadhana, particularly the mantra and meditation. And we need to have some discernment. One of the problems with the new technology, it can also promote either by intention or just by its habitual nature, is aspects of mind control. So make sure, your mind is dominated by your predominant mental activity, thoughts, or attention. If that is a screen, your mind starts to function like a screen. So you must balance that out with daily mantra and meditation, as well as exercise, right use of the senses, medya, rasayanas, and learning this rejuvenation of the body and the mind. But we are remaining in potentially dangerous times, and we must also recognize that our medicine is becoming too chemical. Many chemicals are good. They have very good aids in certain infectious conditions. Modern medicine has many great benefits in terms of its surgical practices, but we cannot reduce the human being, the body, the brain, or the psychology simply to chemistry. And now we have a medicine where often the doctor doesn't see the patient. You do medical testing and send them a recommendation for certain medications to take. I'm not saying this can't be helpful, but in Ayurveda, we recognize that there is a living person there. We must communicate with. We must teach them not simply the better medications for themselves at a chemical level, but to recognize they are more than chemistry. And our well-being depends upon our behavior. We're beginning to discuss behavioral medicine, how we live, how our behavioral activities are, how do we manage our food and diet, how are we breathing, exercising, sleeping, interacting, what our work is. Are we connected to nature? You'll notice that you can find people today that can't name the main places in the forest around them, the main trees around them, but they know so many outer factors and people and all the rest of it going on in the social world. So Ayurveda and yoga have a tremendous future at a healing level for body, mind, and consciousness, for outer senses, intersenses, and also for society as a whole, and for healing society through nature, and to reintegrating the human being with the greater conscious universe. There are movements in this direction in science and all the rest of it, even psychology to some degree, but we have far to go. But let us remember we have to follow a divine inner guidance. The outer technology can help us, but we need the connection to the inner self, and we need to honor the great gurus, the great teachings, the great traditions, and the great paths of meditation, mantra, and self-realization overall. So I will leave a few minutes for questions and answers. We've just simply opened the field. Everyone else is talking about these for some degree, and you can look into it in the available literature and remember how Ayurveda connects to all these related Vedic disciplines and to your own self and to the self-aware universe that you are part of. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Frawley. This is such a gem and such a reminder to all of us that there are age-old methods to help through all of the faulty demarcations of society, you know, as we fall prey to so many things and we get overloaded with our senses. You're setting us such a reminder that we need to come back to these practices and come back to neutral. We're going to open it up to questions. Does anybody have a question over here? We will go to online otherwise. So yeah, Hema, Anumeha has a question.
Namaste, Dr. Frawley. Thank you for such an enlightening talk. My question is, like you said, junk food has such a big impact on our children, right? Now, I'm just wondering if a child really enjoys junk food and you force him to eat dal chawal and healthy food, like what is really right? You know, what do parents do? That's my question.
Well, I think it's very simple. First of all, you share common meals as a family, and you have freshly cooked food and you have food from nature. So you create that habit in the as a way of life. And of course, that you have to let the children explore what they want. But at the same time, if you have this ritual of coming together for food and eating and related things, then that creates another tendency that can counter that. And in education, we have to educate the older children, the actual what's actually in the junk food or what's actually in the soils today, how we need to be more aware of what we're taking in, because it affects what we are going to be for the rest of our lives. Hariom.
A question online. Thank you for your inspiring talk, Dr. Frawley. Virtual Ayurvedic consultations are now quite popular. Can we, as Ayurvedic practitioners, effectively connect with our clients through a screen? Or does that screen thwart or undo the healing potential of the interaction?
Well, one of our friends, Ayurvedic doctors from India, probably Partap Chauhan, has created a very extensive telemedicine throughout India. But still, he makes sure that the patients do come in the beginning or on a regular basis, at least once a month, and medications are given directly to them. Examination is going on, and at least talking is going on. So certainly in our world as it's structured today, we have to do more virtual sessions, but we cannot only do that. And we also have to include some degree of classes or learning, not only for students, but even for clients of Ayurveda. And also have them do some sort of daily diary of what they're doing, what they're eating, what they're doing. And then also, of course, it's very important to have these yoga and Ayurveda healing retreats for individuals or groups or even businesses to go to on a regular basis and include that as part of our regular lifestyle and behavior. So some degree of virtual teaching and consultation is helpful. It's necessary today in our changing world. But again, we have to compensate that with right daily behavior, right seasonal and yearly behavior, right association, and connecting to nature and connecting to the great gurus and the divine forces that pervade us from all sides, as the sacred is everywhere. Hariom.
Thank you so much, Dr. Frawley. Another question, if there's anything you could add onto what you just spoke, particularly when it comes to Ayurvedic Ayurvedic studies programs for students and also for educators, how we could better support ourselves within this community in order to continue to grow and deepen our knowledge within all of this in this age.
Well, that's something you can also discuss with Mamta, with Vivek Shanbhag, and people who are more actively engaged in the educational process and all the organizations that have come up, the Ayurvedic groups, that way. But again, we have to teach that Ayurveda is a way of life, and way of life in harmony with the outer world of nature and also inwardly with our own spiritual nature. And to have our Ayurvedic satsangs or our Ayurvedic communities, not only classes, but again, associations of practitioners. Also, you can do things traveling to India. There are very good Ayurvedic centers there. In fact, today, there's been a greater development of Ayurveda the past 5-10 years than there has in the time before. Now you have the largest global center of natural healing, including Ayurveda and traditional medicine in Gujarat. We still have many great clinics. We now have a number of these new Ayurvedic hospitals involved. Ayurveda is gaining some recognition. We did go to this opening of this Hindu temple in Abu Dhabi, but it's interesting to note they have a very strict doctor program for Ayurveda in UAE and parts of the Middle East and also nearby countries, and also in other parts of the world. But in the United States, we also have to develop that further and also have this multi-level understanding of Ayurveda, that there's Ayurveda for self-healing, there's Ayurveda for the family, there's Ayurveda for children, for the elderly, there's Ayurveda as herbalism, as massage, there's Ayurveda for serious disease, there's also Ayurveda for wellness, there's Ayurveda as integrated into yoga, Vedic astrology, Vastu, so many things. But to bring that vastness out and share it in the form of consultations, retreats, classes, books, pilgrimage, there are many options that one can do, and that, of course, are already being done, and to share this message more broadly. And Ayurveda has also to present a critique in the sense that we have to be careful with what we're doing. You can disturb Vata dosha on a collective level too. That's not very good either. It's not just a question of not disturbing it at an individual level. There are civilizational challenges today with the new technology and the new weapons we have and the new potentials for mind control and the disruption of the environment that is going on. So we also have to have what we like to call this civilizational view. Let us return to or create civilizational values of service, spirituality, nonviolence, meditation, yamas, niyamas, because otherwise we're going to have more problems, and we don't want the 21st century to, like the 20th century, involved world wars. We know there's going to be difficulties and conflicts. We need to emphasize that the role of society and civilization should be to raise our consciousness and link us to the universe as a whole, not just simply to increase our outer power, possessions, or ability to control the external world. We need to learn to control our own minds as well. Hari Om.
Thank you, Dr. Frawley. I have a quick question. How do you help yogis who come to you enthusiastically again and again, but seem to struggle with this fixation that they have of gratification of the sense? They love to look outward for distraction, love to eat junk food. They come back, they're enthusiastic, they want to get healed, but they really struggle with the senses and, the gratification, that instant gratification that's so addictive. How do you help such yogis?
Well, of course, you have to change your behavior. This is a great situation where we'd have them take their regular yoga or Ayurveda retreats, or they take a certain day of the week off, Saturday, Thursday, whatever, and dedicate it to Ayurveda and yoga, or certain phases of the moon, new moon, full moon, and create it at certain time periods. And then over time, you increase, instead of 1 day a week, 2 days a week, instead of a weekend retreat, a week-long retreat, or integrating it into your own behavior. So many of us go out into, we take our travel in the summer and go to the mountains, the beaches, wherever it is we live, the lakes, but to integrate the yoga and Ayurveda into those practices as well, and change the momentum that's going on by our habitual activity, and then have certain simple things. I mean, you have your yoga practices, you just gradually increase it over time, or you have something like a mantra that you chant periodically inwardly through the day to preserve your attention, or instead of taking a coffee break, you take your Ayurvedic tea, your Brahmi, your Tulsi, you take a pranayama break, and so forth. So you integrate and extend as best you can. Hari Om.
Yeah, can we take one last question? Okay. So this question is from an online viewer. What are your thoughts on the so-called yoga and meditation apps that are on the mobile phones these days? Is it possible that they're merely adding to the issues that you mentioned earlier by creating more fixation on the technology?
Well, maybe we could compare it to withdrawing from addiction to a drug. You lower the dosage along the way, but you have to move beyond it. No, we have to understand that we should open to living forms of guidance. Of course, there are many programs, there are many webinars, there are many retreats you can go to, satsangs, temples, rituals, and you should not look to the equipment to be your guru. AI can never be your guru. It can be your editor of sorts. and just have some common sense. You need more prana. You need more power of attention of your own. For example, it's good to have exercise equipment around, but you still have to do the exercise and also eventually go into nature. So these things may be of some short-term help, but you can also listen to chanting, or again, remember, we are products of the universe. We are not just simply products of a mechanically, digitally based society, however valuable these things may be. We have to reconnect to our inner nature and our outer nature, and you will be definitely happier and more calm in the long run if you connect to our higher senses and our deeper awareness. But we may need the time to make that transition, and make sure to have good friends who can share and guide us in what we do, good associates, relationships, families, and communities, so we don't necessarily have to look at a screen or some long distance communication. We have living beings and nature to connect to, and we remember to even bhakti yoga and devotion can be helpful for countering this outward movement or our external addictions. Mind is an addictive mechanism, so let's addict it to mantra, meditation, and right living and nature and all the beautiful forces around us, not only to our technology, which can certainly help in many ways. Hari Om.
Thank you so much, Dr. David Frawley. Such a reminder to know that the human being is not just the body and the mind, but it is the soul. And that you don't just become the product of what is happening around you, but you can also create the aliveness and come back home to the aliveness within you and neutralize all those impressions that are coming from outside. And it's such a great reminder that we have these eternal tools. Nobody can take the mantra away from you, even though there's a screen playing in front of you and there's all the noise, the power that comes from within. And even DVDs today, we think make such clear music, but actually they've taken out the resonance, so they're just staccato. So you get form, but you don't get, you get the particle, but not the wave. And you don't get that relational space. So people are getting very form oriented now. And it's so important to use the tools that the Vedas offer us, eternal tools to keep going. This has been a very, very valuable talk. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank
And
you. Hari Om. Hari Om.